Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is R.S. Raghu, and with me is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastava, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for collaborative spirit at SAARC virtual meet to tackle challenges like COVID-19 pandemic. India, Australia, Japan and the USA hold third Quad meeting. S&P Global Ratings says India will be one of the fastest growing emerging market economies with a 10% growth. Facebook blocks Australian users from sharing or viewing news content on the platform. Foreign envoys in Jammu briefed by top Indian officials on the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir. In tennis, Novak Djokovic and Naomi Osaka storm into the final of men's and women's singles of the Australian Open. And in cricket, Australia's Chris Morris emerges as the most expensive player at the Indian Premier League auction. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday said India is working towards a healthy and COVID-19 free neighborhood. Addressing a workshop on COVID-19 management experience, good practices and way forward with nearly 10 neighboring countries virtually, Mr. Modi said all countries have learned from each other from best practices.
Many other regions and groups followed our early example. We created the COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund to meet the immediate cost of fighting the pandemic. We shared our resources, medicines, PPE and testing equipments. And above all, we shared the most valuable commodity, knowledge, through collaborative training of our health workers.
Appreciating the spirit of collaboration as the major takeaway, Prime Minister said India has achieved the lowest fatality rate globally.
The spirit of collaboration is a valuable takeaway from this pandemic. Through our openness and determination, we have managed to achieve one of the lowest fatality rates in the world. Today, the hopes of our region and the world are focused on rapid deployment of vaccines. In this too, we must maintain the same cooperative and collaborative spirit.
Mr. Modi said all countries should maintain collaborative spirit during the vaccination. Mr. Modi suggested that there should be special visas for medical professionals and arrangements for special air ambulance.
Over the past year, our health cooperation has already achieved so much. Can we now think of raising our ambition further? Can we consider creating a special visa scheme for our doctors and nurses so that they can travel quickly within our region during health emergencies on the request of the receiving country? Can our civil aviation ministries coordinate a regional air ambulance agreement for medical contingencies? Can we create a regional platform for collecting, compiling and studying data about the effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines among our population?
Prime Minister said India's Ayushman Bharat can be a case study for all the regional countries for healthcare. He insisted that a regional platform may be created for studies on forecasting future pandemics. He emphasized that 21st century is Asia's century and it cannot be achieved without greater integration of South Asia and Indian Ocean island countries.
From the very beginning, we all made this challenge with a coordinated response. In March last year, we were the first to come together for recognizing the threat and committing to fight it together.
The third India-Australia-Japan-USA Quad Foreign Ministers meeting began on Thursday with participation of the respective foreign ministers. The Quad meeting is an opportunity to continue the useful exchange of views from their last meeting in Tokyo in October last year. In today's Hotspot segment, we are focusing on the Quad, which is emerging as a significant grouping for collaboration on regional and global issues of common interest.
The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or Quad, is a forum of 4 maritime democracies, namely India, US, Japan and Australia. While cooperation between the 4 Quad countries goes back a long way, the grouping has gained greater importance in the recent past. External Affairs Minister of India Dr. S. Jaishankar, in his opening remarks at the second Quad ministerial meeting held last October in Tokyo, spoke about the joint vision of the grouping.
As vibrant and pluralistic democracies with shared values, our nations have affirmed collectively the importance of maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. We remain committed to upholding the rules-based international order underpinned by the rule of law, transparency, freedom of navigation in international seas, and respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty and peaceful resolution of disputes.
Ahead of the meeting, the U.S. State Department said that Quad is critical to advancing the shared goals of a free and open Indo-Pacific.
This administration has made clear that the United States values our alliances and will work with our partners and friends around the world to pursue common interests across the globe. I'm pleased to announce that tomorrow morning, Secretary Blinken and his counterparts from Japan, Australia, and India will speak together. The Quad, as it's known, and this discussion with the Quad foreign ministers is critical to advancing our shared goals of a free and open Indo-Pacific and rising to the defining challenges of our time, including coordinating our efforts on COVID-19 response as well as climate change.
In today's meeting, the ministers highlighted their shared attributes as political democracies, market economies, and pluralistic societies. They recognized that the changes underway in the world makes a strong case for their countries working closely together. Talking exclusively to AIR News, former diplomat Ashok Sajanhar said the meeting will give strong impulse to the cooperation and collaboration among these 4 countries. Mr. Sajanhar spoke on the importance of the meet in light of the Biden-Harris administration assuming charge in the U.S.
This is the first meeting that is being held after the advent of the Biden-Harris administration in the United States. Initially, there were a few doubts and concerns whether President Biden is also going to give the same importance to the Indo-Pacific and the Quad as his predecessor had given. But ever since he spoke to Prime Minister Modi on the 8th of February and the discussions, it appears quite possible that President Biden also will work towards having a free and open and prosperous Indo-Pacific. So in that context, this meeting is very important.
The ministers discussed ongoing efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, including vaccination programs. India's efforts at providing vaccines to 74 countries was recognized and appreciated. India reiterated the upholding of rule of law and the democratic transition in Myanmar in the meeting. Noting that regular Quad consultations hold value, the ministers agreed to continue these useful discussions. Valsa Williams for World News, AIR.
The delegation of foreign envoys from Europe and Africa, which is on a 2-day visit to Jammu and Kashmir, was on Thursday briefed by top officials of Indian Army and J&K Police about the security situation in the Union Territory. Police sources told AIR News that the envoys were briefed about Indian Army's role in making terrorists surrender, infiltration from LOC in support of Pakistan Army in infiltration, harboring terrorists, training camps and seizure of weapons supplied by Pakistan.
The delegation was briefed about various programs including community engagements, counter-radicalization, the police initiatives in sports, employment opportunities, counseling and community bond schemes for those who shun the gun and surrender. The envoys were also briefed about the situation after the abrogation of Article 370, decrease in incidents of stone pelting and the conduct of peaceful DDC elections in the Union Territory and the overall security situation, especially attempts of Pakistan to push infiltrators into India through the LOC POC and also about the frequent ceasefire violations. The delegation met the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha and Chief Justice of J&K High Court. Grassroots democracy, decentralization and initiatives of the government for peaceful situation remain the focus of envoys' interactions in Jammu and Kashmir. Nasir Rathir, AR News, Jammu.
Foreign Secretary of India Harshvardhan Shringla met Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation Sergei Lavrov on Wednesday. Both sides expressed their intention to strengthen the Russian-Indian, especially privileged strategic partnership in every possible way, as well as to tighten the coordination of positions on pressing international and regional issues, including in multilateral formats with the participation of Russia and India. Speaking at the Diplomatic Academy in Moscow ahead of the meeting on Wednesday, Mr. Shringla spoke about the special and privileged partnership between India and Russia. Commenting on the numerous high-level visits between the two nations, Mr. Shringla said that the frequency of such visits is an indicator of the high priority accorded to Russia by India.
The long-term convergence of our interests, sensitivity to each other's concerns, mutual respect and trust shared by Prime Minister Modi and President Vladimir Putin, growing people-to-people contacts are the key drivers of our bilateral partnership. I was just mentioning today that our Prime Minister and President Putin has met each other 19 times in the last 6 years. I don't think any other, I would say, high-level contacts have been as regular as those between India and Russia, and this itself is an indication of the strong importance that our leadership attaches to this vital relationship that is there.
Mr. Shringla also remarked on the progress of the international North-South Transport Corridor.
We've also prioritized what is called International North-South Transport Corridor. This is essentially a corridor that enables us to use Chabahar Port in Iran to access Central Asia and, of course, Russia. We are important partners in that regard, and I think a tie-up that has just been done between one of our companies and a major Russian company would pave the way for greater cooperation in opening up a new trade route that would connect India with Central Asia and Russia.
Speaking on Indo-Russian cooperation in the field of space, the Foreign Secretary said that they are collaborating on India's Gaganyaan mission.
I'm happy to say that 4 of our astronauts and 2 flight surgeons from India are training in Russia as part of Gaganyaan, which is the first manned, the human spaceflight program from India, which we expect to launch in 2022. Is also the 75th anniversary of India's independence, and so it's an important landmark here for us in India.
S&P Global Ratings has said that India will be one of the fastest growing emerging market economies with a 10% growth in the next fiscal. S&P Director, Sovereign and International Public Finance Ratings, Andrew Wood said this while speaking in a webinar on India Outlook for 2021. He said the forecast for India in 2021 is on stronger side and shows that a lot of economic activity which was frozen last year is coming back online to normalization. S&P said India's economy has stabilized over recent months with progressively better manufacturing, services, labor market and revenue data. The hard part will be converting these trends into a sustained recovery over the next few years. In India, over 9.8 million beneficiaries have been administered COVID-19 vaccine so far. Addressing media in New Delhi, Joint Secretary in the Health Ministry Dr. Mandeep Bhandari said a total of 3,17,190 beneficiaries have been inoculated with COVID-19 vaccine jab on Thursday.
अभी तक कुल टीकाकरण जो इस अभियान में हुआ है वो है 98,46,523। इनमें से जो हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स जिनका टीकाकरण हुआ है उनकी संख्या है 66,99,567। जो पहला टीका यानी प्रथम डोज जिन हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स को लगी है उनकी संख्या है 62,34,635 और दूसरी डोज जिन हेल्थ केयर वर्कर्स को लगी है उनकी संख्या है 4,64,932।
It added that maximum number of doses have been administered on Thursday in Uttar Pradesh, followed by Maharashtra, Bihar, Jammu and Kashmir and Odisha. The ministry informed that a total of around 67 lakh healthcare workers have been inoculated with COVID-19 vaccine doses. It added that more than 62 lakh 34,000 healthcare workers have been administered the first dose, whereas more than 4 lakh 64,000 have been inoculated with second dose so far. The ministry further informed that a total of 31,46,956 frontline health workers have been administered the COVID-19 vaccine jab. The ministry informed that 40 people have been hospitalized after the vaccination and 32 deaths have been reported so far. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has sharply criticized the wildly uneven and unfair distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, demanding a global effort to get all people in every nation vaccinated as soon as possible. The UN chief told a high-level meeting of the UN Security Council that just 10 countries have administered 75% of all COVID-19 vaccines, while 130 countries have not received a single dose of vaccine. He described the goal of providing vaccines to all as the biggest moral test before the global community. Mr. Guterres called for an urgent global vaccination plan to bring together those with the power to ensure equitable vaccine distribution, scientists, vaccine producers, and those who can fund the effort.
In view of detection of the South African and Brazilian variants of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in the country, the Indian Civil Aviation Ministry has released updated Standard Operation Procedure (SOP) for international passengers arriving in India. It will come in effect from 11:59 p.m. on the 22nd of this month. For all international travellers except travellers coming through flights originating from the United Kingdom, Europe and the Middle East, they will be required to submit a self-declaration form on the online Air Suvidha portal before the scheduled travel and upload a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR report. This test should have been conducted within 72 hours prior to undertaking the journey. Each passenger will also submit a declaration with respect to authenticity of the report. They should also give an undertaking to concerned airlines before they are allowed to undertake the journey that they will abide by the decision of the appropriate government authority to undergo home quarantine or self-monitoring of their health for 14 days. As per the SOP, do's and don'ts will be provided to the passengers along with ticket to the travellers by the airlines. At the time of boarding the flight, only asymptomatic travellers will be allowed to board after thermal screening. India's Health and Family Welfare Minister Dr. Harshvardhan has said that India is providing leadership to the entire world in the sphere of public health and stimulating the dissemination of valuable knowledge. While delivering the valedictory address on exchange of good practices in tackling COVID pandemic and the way forward, the minister appreciated the role played by India in providing the vaccines to the neighbouring countries through Vaccine Maitri initiative. He said when the world faced a crisis of confidence regarding the shortage of diagnostics and vaccines, Prime Minister Narendra Modi affirmed that India's production capacity will be used to help humanity in fighting the virus. Bangladesh has thanked India for the gift of 2 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine sent last month. Speaking exclusively to Prasar Bharati after taking the COVID-19 vaccine in Dhaka, Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, expressed satisfaction that the Serum Institute of India, SII, is continuing with the supply of the vaccine as scheduled. The Bangladesh government is continuing with the special vaccination program for the diplomats of the foreign missions in Bangladesh. On Thursday, Foreign Minister Dr. Momen, along with several diplomats including from India, Britain and other countries, took the vaccine shot at the Sheikh Russell National Gastro-Liver Institute. Dr. Momen said that Bangladesh did a good job in controlling the spread of the coronavirus in the country. He said this is reflected in the fact that the death toll has hovered around 8,000 in the country. The death rate has fallen down to single digit. He said Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina used a very innovative strategy from day one of the pandemic, which really helped. Providing food to every house during the pandemic kept the nutrition level right, said the minister. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, spoke with Sultan of Oman, Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, on Wednesday. During the telephonic conversation, the Sultan expressed his appreciation for the COVID-19 vaccines supplied by India to Oman. Both leaders agreed to maintain close cooperation in the joint fight against the pandemic. The Prime Minister congratulated the Sultan on completion of 1 year of his reign and for his Vision 2040 for Oman. They expressed satisfaction about the growing India-Oman cooperation in all areas including defense, health, trade and investment. Both leaders also appreciated the role of the Indian diaspora in enhancing the economic and cultural ties between the two strategic partners.
Facebook has blocked Australian users from sharing or viewing news content on the platform, causing alarm over public access to key information. Australians woke up Thursday morning to find the Facebook pages of all local and global news sites were unavailable. Several government, health, emergency and other pages were also blocked. Later, the tech giant asserted that it was a mistake. Prime Minister Scott Morrison termed the actions as arrogant and disappointing. Those outside of Australia are also unable to read or access any Australian news publication on the platform. Facebook's move is in response to a proposed law in Australia which would make tech giants pay for news content. Companies like Google and Facebook have argued the law doesn't reflect how the internet works and unfairly penalizes their platforms. Communication Minister Paul Fletcher said that Facebook needs to think very carefully about what this means for its reputation and standing.
Georgia's Prime Minister resigned on Thursday in a move which deepens the political crisis in the country following parliamentary elections in October. The elections were marred by fraud allegations according to reports. Georgi Gakharia in a statement said that he would step down to avoid more political polarization following the announcement of plans to arrest opposition politician Nika Melia.
The President of the United States, Joe Biden, has termed the Nord Stream 2 as a bad deal. Speaking to the press on Wednesday, White House spokesperson Ms. Jen Psaki said that the U.S. is continuously monitoring the activity and is looking at the applicability of sanctions. The Nord Stream 2 is a project which builds on Nord Stream 1 as an export gas pipeline running from Russia to Europe across the Baltic Sea.
Our position on Nord Stream 2 has been very clear and it remains unchanged. President Biden has made clear that Nord Stream 2 is a bad deal. It's a bad deal because it divides Europe, it exposes Ukraine and Central Europe to Russian manipulation, and because it goes against Europe's own stated energy and security goals. We're continuing to monitor activity to complete or to certify the pipeline, and if such activity takes place, we'll make a determination of the applicability of sanctions.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
In an important step to integrate technology for the delivery of justice, the Supreme Court of Bangladesh launched a translation software on Thursday. Our Dhaka correspondent has filed the story.
The Bangladesh Supreme Court launched the artificial intelligence-based translation software Amar Bhasha today. The software will translate orders and judgments of the Supreme Court from English to Bangla. The software has been developed with Ek-Step Foundation of India. It is based on their Anuvad translation software used in India to translate from English to Indian languages including Bangla. Anuvad was deployed by the Supreme Court of India as Supreme Court Vidik Anuvad software from November 2019. Speaking during the virtual function to inaugurate the software, High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, Vikram Doraiswamy, said that India is honoured to partner in the development of such a unique translation software designed in India and shared on a gratis basis. The High Commissioner further said that this collaboration was possible as Bangla was one of the recognized languages of India. Moreover, the judicial systems of both the countries have common origins, similar systems and lexicon. The High Commissioner appreciated the recent efforts by the Supreme Court of Bangladesh in integration of technology for smooth dispensation of justice in Bangladesh, such as setting up e-courts during the pandemic. Rajesh Jha, World News, All India Radio, Dhaka.
Nearly 7 months after its takeoff to Mars, NASA Perseverance rover is expected to land at the red planet's Jezero crater shortly. In a tweet, NASA said earlier that the trip to Mars 99.9% is complete. Indian-American scientist Dr. Swati Mohan is the Mars 2020 Guidance, Navigation and Controls GNC Operations Lead. The Sensex and Nifty posted third straight day losses today, but the rupee strengthened marginally against the US dollar. In the international markets, crude oil prices rose amid production hurdles, a report from the Business World.
The Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange declined 379 points or 0.7% to close at 51,325. The Nifty dropped 90 points or 0.6% to 15,119. But the broader market outperformed the Sensex with both the BSE mid-cap and small-cap indices rising 0.7% higher. Key indices at the other Asian markets ended mostly lower. So Japan's Nikkei 225 index shed 0.4%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index declined 1.6%. South Korea's Kospi index dropped 1.5%. And Singapore's Straits Times index lost 0.4%. But China's Shanghai Composite Index rose 0.6%. In Europe, key indices London's FTSE 100 had declined 0.7% and France's CAC 40 index had shed 0.3%.
Now news from the world of sports.
Tennis top seed Novak Djokovic and three-time slam champion Naomi Osaka have entered the final of the men's and women's singles of the Australian Open. In the semi-finals played today, Djokovic overcame stern resistance from Aslan Karatsev to reach the summit clash and end the Russian qualifier's remarkable run. Despite the world number 114 causing moments of tension, Djokovic had enough quality to win 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. Djokovic, who is going for a record-extending 9th title in Melbourne, will face either Daniil Medvedev or Stefanos Tsitsipas in Sunday's final. Russian 4th seed Medvedev meets Greek 5th seed Tsitsipas in the other semi-final on Friday, with both men trying to reach their first Australian Open final. In women's singles, Naomi Osaka claimed an impressive victory over Serena Williams to reach the final and end the Americans' latest quest for a record-equaling 24th Grand Slam title. Three-time Slam champion Osaka withstood early pressure from Williams to win 6-3, 6-4. The Japanese will face Jennifer Brady in Saturday's final after the American beat Karolina Muchova. In IPL auction 2021, Chris Morris became the costliest ever player for Rajasthan Royals, while Krishnappa Gautam became the costliest Indian uncapped player for Chennai Super Kings.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Washington Post writes NASA's Mars rover Perseverance poised for bullseye landing on the red planet. Los Angeles Times reports 3 North Korean computer programmers charged with conspiring to steal and extort more than $1 billion in a series of cyber attacks. The Guardian reports that legendary reggae toaster Yu Roy dies at the age of 78. Sputnik News writes Chinese FM Wang Yi calls on wealthy nations to stop stockpiling COVID-19 vaccine amid jab shortages. Khalij Times reports on Manya Singh, the daughter of an auto rickshaw driver who was crowned Miss India 2020 runners-up. And the Himalayan Times reports that Nepal on Thursday reported 96 new cases of coronavirus infection from across the country.
A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls for collaborative spirit at SAARC virtual meet to tackle challenges like COVID-19 pandemic. India, Australia, Japan and the USA hold third Quad meeting. S&P Global Rating says India will be one of the fastest growing emerging market economies with a 10% growth. Facebook blocks Australian users from sharing or viewing news content on the platform. Delegation of foreign envoys briefed by top officials from Indian Army and J&K Police about the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic and Naomi Osaka storm into the final of men's and women's singles of the Australian Open. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Australia.
Hello.
And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.